Being named as an executor is an honor, but it's also an honor that is full of stress. You're going to be managing not only your emotions, but also the legal responsibilities that come with being named executor. Today, we're going to talk about how to bridge that gap. Hi, Nancy Beauvert here with the Gappy and NEXsteps. And today I wanted to talk about something that's not addressed very often, and that's the emotional side of being named an executor. There's lots of articles, there's lots of videos, there's lots of support out there that give you information about what to do when you're an executor, what your responsibilities are. But there are very few resources out there that actually help unpack a lot of the emotional aspects of acting as an executor. So, just to review some of those things, we all know that being an executor requires taking care of a lot of paperwork. But there's also a lot that goes beyond just the paperwork. There's a lot of tasks that have to happen. Typically, what happens is the executor is going to be responsible for the funeral arrangements. They're going to be responsible for making sure that probate happens. You have to file taxes. You have to make sure that bills are paid. You have to secure the assets of the deceased. You have to track down their digital information and take care of all of their online and digital accounts. There's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of deadlines. And a lot of people just don't understand. They see through their own lens. And that's where there's often conflict that comes up with families or other beneficiaries that have been named in the will. Grief is a funny thing. There's a lot of things that happen when somebody passes away. There's a lot of emotions that have been passed over, that have been buried, that come out with grief. Old sibling rivalries can raise their ugly heads. There can be a sense that somebody was being treated unfairly. There's a lot of guilt in a lot of cases, and there can be a lot of misplaced assumptions about what took place, what is going to take place. And the executor is almost always stuck in the middle of these kinds of issues. These kinds of issues can come up in every family. It's not about people being right or wrong. It's about how we are humans and how we deal with our grief. So the purpose of this week's article and video is to help learn how to manage those emotions as the executor and how to communicate so that you can at least minimize some of these conflicts that can come up. We have to also remember that in most cases, the people who have been named as executors are the spouse or a child or some other relative, a close friend of the deceased. And we often overlook the fact that that executor is also grieving. They're also having their emotions that they're having to deal with while they're having to take on the role and the responsibility of being the executor. As I mentioned earlier, there's timelines that have to be met. There can be pressure from lawyers, from courts, as well as the heirs and beneficiaries. There's tax filings that have to happen in a prescribed time. I'd just like to point out right now that if you are feeling overwhelmed as an executor, I do offer executor support. I have a link in the description in this video, and you can go over to my website and you can learn more or reach out to me. But let's talk more about how you, as an executor, can help deal with all of these stresses and these emotions. I've said it before, and I'll keep saying it forever. The most important thing is communication. You have to communicate regularly and make sure that you are keeping the beneficiaries and the heirs up to date on where things are in the process. Settling an estate is not an easy thing. It doesn't happen in 2 or 3 months. In most cases, it can take 12 to 18 months or even longer if there are more complex estates involved. So to be sure to be communicating and setting proper expectations with the heirs and beneficiaries about where the process is and what still has to be done. Even if it does take a little bit shorter or a little bit longer, at least there is a ballpark estimate of the time that it will take to settle the estate. Now, another thing is that the executor is obligated to treat everybody fairly and according to the terms of the will. So you can't take sides. You can't decide for yourself that it was perhaps a little bit unfair in your view about the distribution of assets. It is your obligation as the executor to follow the wishes of the deceased and how they were outlined in the will. If you start improvising, that's when you're going to get into trouble legally. Document everything. You're going to have to, in order to close the estate, you're going to have the beneficiaries sign off on a document that is going to outline exactly what happened with all of the assets, whether they're financial, whether they're personal effects. There is going to be documentation that does have to be signed off before you can settle the estate and distribute the assets. So start right away. Make sure that you're keeping proper records right from the beginning. And don't be afraid to ask for help. There are lots of people out there who can help you and should help you. Expediting probate, you can use a paralegal, you can use a lawyer, somebody who is used to the process. There's a lot of paperwork that has to be filed in those early days. And if you're unfamiliar with it, things can get lost, things can get done wrong. A lawyer or a paralegal can help. Make sure that you get good accounting advice. You're going to have to file a final tax return. There may be a trust return that's required. There may be a business return that's required. You're going to have to make sure that those are done right, and you're going to want to obtain a clearance certificate from the CRA before you do final distribution. So make sure that you've got proper accounting support. You also may want to engage the services of someone like myself, a certified executor advisor who has walked this walk many times, understands a lot of the issues, can connect you where required to the appropriate professionals to provide that support. So remember, you're not alone. You can do this, and you can deal with your grief, and you can do it in a balanced way. Reach out. Give me a call. Let me know how I can support you. Hop over to the website and read the article. It's got a lot more detail in there, and I hope that this helps you. Thanks for joining me this week. I look forward to seeing you again next time. Bye for now.